Welcome to Secure with Dr. KJ. My next guest is Zack Tembi, CEO of SingleFin, a security and infrastructure optimization advisory firm helping organizations navigate digital transformation. Zack has spent his career helping build high-growth companies, with 5 exits and an IPO under his belt. Over the past decade, he's been an active seed investor and advisor to companies at the intersection of AI and cybersecurity, with bets on firms like Cribble, Doppel, Aegis AI, and Cerebrus. He also runs CIO Surge, a community and newsletter for technology executives. You can follow his insights at www.ciosurge.com. Zack, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dr. KJ. I was excited to jump on the horn with you.
No, I am as well, man. I mean, we've known each other a little while, and so it's only fitting that we end up here on a podcast together. So let's jump right into question one, my friend. So when we think about app security, right, it's always been a race between developers shipping fast and security teams trying to keep up. So what does that race look like today, and what are the biggest gaps you're still seeing in how organizations approach securing their applications?
Yeah, we're in an exciting time, KJ, where the adoption of AI is really accelerating innovation at the end of the day, right? So that's what I'm most excited about. What I've kind of seen in the market is that 4 or 5 years ago, a startup would come along and it would take a year to build generation 1 enterprise ready product. With some of the recent innovations in coding and development, you could create an enterprise product within a week or two. So that's spurring just amazing transformation and innovation in our industry. But with that comes a new set of complexities around developing applications securely, performant. And, the main thing that I've seen as gaps in the market, there's a number of them, but the main things as companies develop these, world-class applications, the threats are changing. So, hackers are using new methodologies that are fully automated, pretty disruptive to, companies' business. And, one of the gaps is really around monitoring. So, going with AI native monitoring solutions, companies that were born in this AI era, some of the legacy vendors out there in the world from a monitoring standpoint aren't equipped to really handle today's challenges. So I think, that's kind of the first step is getting the appropriate modern tooling in place so you could leverage some of these, very advanced, AI applications.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing, which I think is neglected in the market, is having more of an offensive security mindset. With some of the new tools coming up that are equipping practitioners to really inspect, interrogate the validity of applications that are going out in the world, you really need to be proactive around that. So getting things in place that helps you identify vulnerabilities quickly, patch things quickly, and using automation and AI to really do that with limited resources, right? It seems like every company is, looking for great talent and don't have the budget to really scale their team. So, using these advanced tools are going to become, critical as we leverage, some of the newer solutions in the market.
Yeah, no, I think one thing that I'm also seeing just in general in this development space is like the jobs, right? So recently I created a website, right? And I use AI, I use Claude, right? So I went in there, I said, hey, these are the color schemes that I want. This is the information I want. Here's my logo. I wanted it. I added it. I got an index folder, or index.html. And then I was able to then go into GoDaddy, upload that to their Arrow, change it around a little bit, just copy and paste, and then publish. Literally in a matter of 5 minutes, right? I could do all of that and it works. But then there begs the question, how much security was built into that. Now, GoDaddy's platform is probably secure, and there are probably things that you have to enable, when it comes to website or app security in that. But that's just an example of how quick things are moving. And then I had a friend who reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I'm trying to build something on SharePoint, right? And I need your help." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm super busy." And then I get like a text like the next day. I figured it out. I used AI, and I was just like, "Wow." So, I mean, from that, how do you think like that how does that come into play for you? Like what you're seeing in the market as well, of people just using AI and doing that.
Yeah, those are great, really great use cases. And,
Mm-hmm.
From an enterprise perspective, as, organizations are moving towards monetizing their data, I think there's a couple big challenges that are going to pop up that people don't, really realize at scale. A good example of this is, I work and advise a startup that launched, a couple months ago, and they're neo AI, AI from the ground up company. So it's
Right.
part of their core architecture, and they're
Mm-hmm.
building out. In a couple months, they were able to build out 36 agents, but they're forecasting over the next 12 months they're going to have 1,000 agents deployed.
Yeah.
And running their company. And this is, not a small, well, it's not a big company. It's only, 20 employee company. So I mentioned that use case because that's going to happen at all enterprises. So as these companies continue to invest in AI, it's going to go from, okay, we're managing a handful of agents, a little pet project, and we've got some value here, to now we're going to scale up and have, 2,000, 5,000 agents. So from a security perspective, there's some fundamental things that need to change to manage that size environment at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I think it comes down to just, foundational, a couple foundational areas that we just need to go back to as practitioners.
Mm-hmm.
The first is endpoint. So understanding the endpoint is critical. The network layer, as well as we leverage solutions like Claude, and a lot of these systems are in the cloud. So what's happening? What sort of data is being transferred, and being able to monitor that. And then the last thing, which I think is the most important part, and it seems like a lot of budgetary dollars are shifting towards this, is identity.
Yes.
We're used to managing environments where it's, person to person transactions or communications. Now we have all these autonomous systems, doing their thing, which is amazing. But now that threat vector has exploded exponentially. So I think identity is going to be a critical piece for, myself, my team, and all our customers at the end of the day.
No, I love the identity piece. And then, when you think about AI and how that plays into it as well, right? So you think about the asset or the attack surface. So with AI being used on both sides of the equation in app, from a defender and from a protector, right? Those defenders, they're using it to find those vulnerabilities a little bit faster. But the attackers, they're using it to generate those malicious code and bypass controls. So from where you sit, is AI that net positive, or is it a net negative for the application security right now? And what should practitioners pay close attention to?
Yeah, great question. I think, just to lead off with an example of kind of what I've seen out in the wild of folks that are effectively using AI.
Right.
You don't need to be a sophisticated hacker anymore to create these attacks, right? With leveraging AI, you can build pretty complex attacks very quickly and scale those, to hit, many targets. And, the first thing that really, comes to mind when, how we have to change our our mindset. I think it's organizational structure, I think, is number one. Whereas, historically security has been, a separate group where, they provide their input to the developer team. But there is two separate teams. The companies that are really effectively scaling AI, they're embedding security in those development teams. So they have security analysts that are part of that build of that AI application from the ground up, and making sure that it's part of the foundation and the architecture. So I think, from an organizational standpoint, companies are going to start to shift to that, that type of team, and it's only going to get, more complex, right? As we get these attackers throwing all these various attacks at us.
Yeah, no, I think, everyone has a stake, in the product at that point, right? When you're bringing the security team, the AI team, the infrastructure team, the anybody team that we have out there, I think we all have a stake in the product. But I think what that is also saying is there's collaboration and communication, the two C's that are very, very important in any team and any product that is going to be shipped. Right. So as long as we have that communication and collaboration, I think that's where what you're saying is like things can be handled in a vacuum and be dealt with a lot quicker. So, yeah.
100%. It's part of the, the core of a company. If we're embedding and making sure that, security isn't just a security team thing. It's a company thing, right? Everybody in the organization is supporting, that the various efforts to maintain brand integrity. And it's wild, man. I mean, I've I encountered a friend of mine who was telling me about an attack where the attackers, it wasn't a super technical attack, but they found a vulnerability in a chat, so a chat bot for the company.
Right.
So these attackers were using human language and were basically able to ask the right questions to commit fraud. Right? They were trying to get refunds on certain products, and they were just able to do that through a chat bot. So that, at the end of the day, those types of challenges, those are identity challenges.
Right.
Where, certain, AI systems have access to things that they shouldn't.
Right.
And there's not those proper guardrails. So, again, I think overall it's going to be a very positive for society. I use it every day. Most folks today are using AI every day. Right. Where I'm super excited is the innovation. And then, as I put my security hat on is just, trying to figure out where the gaps are, where are we going to be in trouble if we don't architect these systems the right way?
I think you said the big thing, architect the systems the right way, right? And I think that's where people miss is they're provided, if they're using a cloud provider, they're provided a system that's already secure to a degree, right? And you have to architect your solution as it need be, whether it's based on compliance, whether it's HIPAA, PCI DSS, and so forth. So I think that is going to be a critical motion as well. So, but when you talk about leading, right, there's a shift, right, that's happening. So, but the developers are really increasingly being handed AI assisted coding tools. So, and you kind of mentioned it, right? They're producing all these thousands lines of code with security flaws. And I kind of mentioned that too in what I did, right? So how are you preparing your team to handle that reality? And what does security leadership look like when the threat landscape is evolving faster than most of the training programs can keep up with?
Yeah, it's a great point, KJ. I mean, the reality of what's going to have to shift, and this goes back to my earlier thought around legacy tooling to really get a handle on some of these developer challenges that are popping up. We have to fight spy versus spy, right? So the hackers, they're using AI to accelerate their efforts. Companies have to do the same, right? So we have to adopt those modern frameworks and technologies. And one kind of fundamental thing, which I'm seeing in the market and where I urge my customers, is bringing those mission critical data sets, mission critical apps, bringing those actually to private cloud. So less reliance on, some of the providers out there. That does two main things. It's going to allow organizations to have more control over how things are built, but more importantly, protecting that brand integrity, right? Building a moat around your IP. The company's data is the most valuable asset, and continuing to grow in value. So, bringing that to a private cloud or on-prem, are definitely viable options. And then it allows you to really, use your data appropriately, keep it protected. Everything's API driven these days. So, again, taking that ownership of your data, I think, is a key thing that fundamentally companies have to really change before, hey, let's send all our data to the AI providers. Right. A lot of these LLMs are getting so robust and accessible at the end of the day. You can bring a lot of this innovation in-house and really develop that with a low lift. You don't need to have the $500,000 a year engineer to build this stuff anymore.
Well, I would like to be that $500,000 engineer, but I digress on that for sure. But no, I mean, so Zach, what final thoughts do you have for our listeners out there?
I think the main one, KJ, is it's super exciting that we have all this innovation happening in our world today, but it can also be very scary. Especially somebody like myself, I've been doing things a certain way in IT for 20 years. But I think the one thing that I definitely urge your listeners, and, I try to do this myself, is, continue to innovate, sharpen your skill set so that they align with these modern innovations that are coming out. Really, what I mean by that is, like, take the time to actually test these solutions, right? Poke holes in them, build them in your dev environment, and really try to upskill, your knowledge. I think that's the most important thing, because, AI still, there's a huge place in the world where it could solve problems, but we're still going to need that human innovation and creativity to really get value out of it. So I think, just understanding it the best way you can, that's the first step, and the innovation will come.
No, I love that. That's a great final thought there. And Zach, I truly appreciate you jumping on the show and gracing us with your presence and knowledge. And I look forward to doing it again sometime down the road. So again, seriously, thank you from me and everybody else out there.
Hey, appreciate it, KJ. Really, really appreciate the opportunity. Had fun rapping with you here.
And that's a wrap on today's conversation with Zack Tembi. From the evolving race between developers and security teams to the explosion of AI agents and the critical role of identity security, Zack brought some real practitioner insights to the table. His reminder to continue sharpening your skills and staying curious about these modern innovations is something every security professional can take with them. If you want to follow more of Zack's insights, head over to www.ciosurge.com. As always, thank you for listening to Secured with Dr. KJ. Securing tomorrow, one episode at a time.